recording. Making sure it's recording, double checking. All right. So I'm just kind of going over the schedule for those of you who are missing class and just saying that the 301 to 303 Canvas input is due today, but also make sure you're putting in that hometown exercise by today. It was technically due on the 22nd, but I won't penalize you for being late. We went over the international project number 2, and that's separate video. So here we're going to do 304 destination alternates, 305 international charts, and the AT chart. And also I'm going to introduce you to the AT chart information homework, which is going to be very difficult considering I haven't been back to work since this whole lockdown, and I don't actually have my own chart, but I'll do my best to help introduce you to that. Okay, so first and foremost, let me go click on the assignment. Oops, let me make sure I tell you when it's due. AT chart information is going to be due March 31st, planned. If you go look at it with me, scrolling, AT chart information homework. This is a big one for your project 2. You're going to have a really hard time figuring out a lot of questions in project 2 if you don't do this homework, and it's worth a lot of points. Why can't I find it? There it is. 305 homework AT chart information. Okay, so when we open it up, this basically asks you to answer a series of questions using your AT chart or Atlantic orientation chart. Who here, if anyone wants to unmute yourself or chat with me or get in touch with me, if you do not have a chart or access to the charts, that's going to be a big showstopper for this. So I'll do whatever I can to get you a chart. I mean, there's only so much I can do, but we'll give it a shot. How do I do this? Unpin. Sorry. This is called me being incredibly tech not savvy at all. Minimize. Okay. So you can see my little face so I can make gestures at you. So AT chart, I'm going to show you what's in it so that I can vaguely go over it with you. And then I will do my very best to at some point get permission to go into my office. Right now I can't go in. It's a strange and crazy world. If you look at the scale on that Atlantic orientation chart, make sure you're actually reading the AT1 side. That's important for this question. On the 2 side, the scale is different. RVSM airspace will be designated by a line, and then it'll actually say RVSM flight level blah to blah. And then the rest of these, you have to read through all the panels. Remember how in class in the very beginning, I opened up the AT chart and I said, do you want the good news or the bad news? The good news is you're going to be really smart on this chart. The bad news is you're going to have to read practically every panel. Well, kids, this is where you get that wonderful opportunity to read every panel of the Atlantic orientation chart. Okay, this selected VOLMAT broadcast in RTF, that VOLMAT broadcast information is on the cover of the chart. Got it? On the cover of the chart. If you want to pop into my office hours, if you're confused on how to read that, that's probably the best time because I can show you exactly where to look. I don't want to belabor it here. Let's see, if you want to get the forecast, they're asking you to read off that same chart as well. Frequency for St. Anthony VOR DME, you can look at panel 8. That's where you can list. Elevation. All of these things, make sure you're reading the correct. I used to not give any references, but it became too painful, so I decided to go easy on y'all. And then basically reading through every single panel is what you're basically gonna do. Okay, lots and lots of different notes. If you get stumped on anything, first ask each other. I mean, is anyone still doing a study group with the class? You guys able to get together at all?
Nope.
No.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well,
Meeting other people's how you die now.
I know.
Yeah.
Social distancing at its finest.
It's social distancing now.
Well, let's social distance, but use my office hours. If a better time would work for a group of you, then I can just start a Zoom and we can all just kind of coordinate. I can walk away while you guys are all Zooming together if you want. Or you can do meetings amongst yourselves. That's a great way to sort of pull out your, like this homework is a perfect time for y'all to get together and work together. Are you guys forbidden from going to the library still?
I was in the library the other day. I think it's still good.
Yeah, you can go in there. You just gotta get your temperature check before you go in.
They didn't even
Yeah.
ask me for a temperature check. I thought it was gonna happen. I just walked
Oh
in.
no.
Really? Well, then
Yeah.
maybe you can like secretly. I'm not saying that. I'm saying one or two of you, three. FaceTime each other, work together. Michaela's also helpful and she is available to help you all. So, okay. Let's quickly go over destination alternates for flag operations. Stop this. My face over there. You guys can see the slides, right?
Yeah, we can see him.
Yes, we can see it.
I'm not on the wrong slide page. Okay, weather, the bane of our existence as pilots. We have to deal with weather. Basically, the captain's function is to fly the airplane, but also make sure you're legal to go fly. We're going to talk about selection of alternates for flag flights. So this one's a pretty quick one, so we should be done pretty quickly. So you can change in flight if you need another alternate if the weather goes bad, and this is the regulation that kind of details that. I'm going to click on it. Biggest thing to remember, and we've been over this before, is that an alternate is always required when you're going to go more than 6 hours of flight time for Part 121, which is what we're doing when we're taking our Philadelphia to Heathrow flight. So obviously that's why even though if you look carefully at the TAFs that are London Heathrow, we do not need an alternate. Still had to designate Manchester because of our 7-hour and 2-minute flight. Less than 6 hours, basically the same rule again that I think we've covered these before, 1 hour before to 1 hour after. It's 1,500 feet above the lowest published, or 2,000 above the elevation, whichever's greater. And then visibility has to be 3 miles more than the lowest minimums, whichever is greater. A little bit more restrictive for flag flights. Okay. Remember the 1 nav, 2 nav rule. You're gonna have to still remember this for the rest of this class. Just like for domestic. Does anyone need me to go over this again? You guys probably practiced enough on project 1. Okay. This is again the table that shows you the reason why we have to add 401, because the FAA said so. That's why, because of notice 8900.117. Here we have an example. We're going from Anchorage to Edmonton, Alberta with an alternate of CYVR, which is Vancouver. Does anyone know, is this a domestic flight? Obviously this is not a domestic flight, right? So I'll just skip through that, that Q&A. Clearly, we're going from Anchorage to Vancouver, 2 different countries. That makes it fairly cut and dried flag flight. But if we were going from Anchorage to Seattle, would that be domestic or flag?
It'll still be flag.
It would be.
Flag.
Yeah, because I mean, technically you're overflying international waters to get there. Cool. That's why. So in Edmonton, Alberta, I've pulled up your, oh my gosh, the NOTAM says the localizer's down. We're going to have to rely upon an NDB. Dun, dun, dun. There's your minute for the NDB. Pretty high, right? So you got some challenges. Let's go back to this slide. I just need to remind myself we're actually going from Anchorage to Edmonton with a Vancouver alternate. Okay, so that's what we're doing. Here we go. Looks pretty good for the weather, except, ooh, it is less than 6 hours. Do we need an alternate? You can tell by my tone that we probably do, right? Does anyone want to tell me which of these lines makes it most important to have an alternate? I'm looking at you all. Yeah. Who's Lucky Tuck? You're not muted. Who are you? Oh, no answer. Probably away from the computer. Logan Mohar. Hello. You're not muted.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. How come we need an alternate?
Disability minimums.
It's because of, whoops. Let me go back. Dang it. My slideshow's malfunctioning. I'm hitting the correct button for the record, but it's not. There we go. It's because of the tempo condition. Okay. It's always the dang tempo condition that gets us. So CYVR looks pretty good. Vancouver's our alternate. So we have to look at it and we have to say, so what should our alternate minimums be if we have both a localizer and an ILS? Everything's working at Vancouver, considering both 08 right and 08 left. Required mins are based on 2nav rule. We're just 201.5.
409 and 1.5.
Yeah. What? Say it again.
414 and 1.5.
There you go. Beautiful job. So we can move on from that. So 414, 1.5. He added 201.5. 414 and 1 actually. Okay. Weather forecast for destination must be at or greater than minimums at the ETA. So if it stops being great at your ETA, you're forced to have that alternate. Okay. Did I go too fast through that? Questions? No. I know this one was a real life, should have done it with a tabletop type of thing, but I can show you. How come it has to be 414 and not 409 when we add the 200? Anyone?
Because you always add it to the highest.
Correct. Beautiful. So you guys seem pretty well versed on that. Flag, the main differences as I scroll back through here and I kind of highlight the differences. What's really important, it's a different regulation. This slide is what makes flag flights different because of the 6-hour flight time. Under 6 hours, the numbers are different than for domestic. So that's flag flights for you. For destination alternates, we covered, okay, international charts. This one also is a pretty quick one. And I'll let you all go back to your, whatever you're doing in your homes, hopefully. Downloading that. We're gonna look once again at Yakutsk, Russia. And instead of focusing on their QFE, their crazy weather stuff, we'll look at the charts itself. Someone blowing up a bike tire. So if you have your European high chart in class, I would make you all pull it out, but we can't really do that here. If you look at the back of the chart, you're going to see the effective altitudes vary from country to country. So high could be it could be 24,000 feet in the UK, but it could be 26,000 feet in France. So we're going to have a Kahoot if we can. Yesterday during Jet Systems, I successfully played Kahoot with my daughter's iPad in the camera. So we're doing this, okay? We're doing 301 to 307 after we cover it for extra credit for you, okay? So I'm gonna ask you during that to pull out charts. Don't come to that class without your charts handy. So for example, looks like lower extends to flight level 240 in the UK. France, upper begins at 195. Strange, but true. Not everywhere is America. Not everyone does it like we do. So remember, in the low structure, you're going to be assigned a low airway. In the high structure, you're going to be assigned an upper airway, or UP. UP 600. Directional or non-directional? Can you go either way? Anyone?
Either way.
Non-directional.
Non-directional, and of course this arrow is directional. If you plan it the wrong way, they just won't accept your flight plan and you'll have to go replan. This Atlantic orientation chart, or AT orientation chart, is going to be pivotal over the next month for you guys to understand. This is your informational chart. So everything you need to know about a frequency, about a changeover point, about whether or not, say, St. John's is at 16 West, or, you know, whatever lat longs everything's at, detailed track procedures, it's all going to be on this chart. The plotting chart is basically for you to plot things and measure things. This one you're not going to plot on, but you're going to look for a lot of information. Lots of places give flight levels in meters. Be on the lookout for that. And then even in China, some airports use QFE. You have to make sure, if you're unable, to tell them ahead of time. There's a lot lost in translation when it comes to flying in Asian airspace and European airspace, I can tell you that. If you do get a flight level in meters, do the conversion real quick. Also, that it would help to have this on your knee board. Just a thought. Airspace boundaries are called FIRs, or UIRs, and I'll show a video in just a second on this. Flight Information Region, or FIR, is basically covers upper and lower. So it's just basically an airspace in the sky, a national border in the sky. And then a UIR is more specific, and it's for much busier airspace. So you'll see UIRs in places like London Heathrow, and I'm pulling up my YouTube video to show you now.com, FIRs versus UIRs. So UIRs, busy airspace, FIRs everywhere else. FIR, UIR. It's coming. The boundaries look like this. They're green. I almost said blue. They're green, and they're written Scottish EGPX UIR/UTA. The EGPX is the identifier. Each one of these UIRs or FIRs has an identifier, which you're going to see on your flight plan, your handy flight plan that I've given you. Hey, look at this. Give me the FIRs. I guess I can't control up for that. Hey, look at that. EET to Connie. No, it's going to find everything with a full. So EETs will be designated for each FIR because the controllers are interested in at what time are you going to reach Scottish airspace, so that they can pick up the phone and say, American Airlines flight 726 is inbound. They're going to switch over to your frequency momentarily, and then you cross over into basically another country at that point. All right. See if I can get this 2-minute video to play.
Breaking things down a little bit then.
I gotta put it on the correct screen, don't I? Screen 2. Okay. Can you guys see the video now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Piece of terminology, flight information regions, or FIRs. The chart here shows the FIRs in and around the United Kingdom. This is what the world looks like to a commercial pilot. So each one of these individual territories that you can see broken down outlines who owns and controls that flight information region. So ultimately, who sets the rules and regulations for those individual areas. And the United Kingdom itself is broken down into 2 main FIRs. London FIR down in the south and Scottish FIR up in the north. And colloquially, they are known as the United Kingdom FIR, the UK FIR. And this is where your PFCO is valid. There's a few notable exceptions to this, though, and a few things to point out. The Channel Islands, part of the United Kingdom, but they fall outside of the UK FIR. So your PFCO will not be valid in Jersey and Guernsey as it is in the UK. You need to apply to the civil aviation authorities in those individual islands in order to be able to operate there commercially. Generally a fairly straightforward paperwork exercise, but worth noting. Likewise, another one to note is the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man falls within the London FIR. However, recently, the Isle of Man Transport Authority have said that anyone who wants to operate a drone commercially on the island must apply to them for an additional permission. So, and that is a case of getting in touch with them, letting them know who you are, showing them all of your paperwork, and then getting a permission from them. But as you can see here, for example, Southern Ireland falls into its own flight information region. So your permission for commercial operation isn't valid in Southern Ireland. You need to contact their National Aviation Authority and apply for a permission to operate there. And in this case, the National Aviation Authority for Southern Ireland is the IAA, the Irish Aviation Authority, who do accept our PFCO as an acceptable means of compliance. Likewise, if we want to go and operate in France, we need to contact the owner of the French Flight Information Region, and that is the DGAC. So you'd need to write to the DGAC or give them a call and apply for your French permission.
Okay, so basically what he's saying is that somebody in your company at American Airlines has done all of this permission gathering, and you, American Airlines, have permission to fly through these other countries, but this is not a given. The United States Air Force, for example, does not have overfly permission over Iran, whereas some airlines possibly do. I can think of a few airlines that have overfly permission over Iran. Hold on, I'm trying to find my share, but I'm so good at this. Come on, up. New share, screen one. Y'all still with me and awake? I heard a ding ding. Hello, whoever just showed up. Welcome to the party. So we're talking about FERS and UIRs. He didn't really expound upon UIRs. There's another video or two on UIRs, but not that interesting. I can call that real quick. Big airspaces like London have just upper ones. To
Your mic is doing.
what's that? Somebody come in? Say hi.
You were 1,000. You were unbelievably loud for a
Oh
second.
my
Yeah, your mic was like exploding.
Sound like you're under a Saturn
Holy.
V rocket or something.
I'm awake now. Good lord.
I changed it up.
That was scary.
Is everyone okay?
No.
No.
A little rattled.
Wake up! I did not do it on purpose. So my deepest and humblest apologies. We're talking about UIRs, basically are for so that say there's a controller trying to make London airspace work. So she doesn't have to sit there and control from the ground to flight level, 410. She only gets, say, flight level 270 to 410. So they break it up. That's why FERS and UIRs. So, all right, you guys can read this. Diligently search charts. You're going to find out how much attention to detail is required as a pilot, especially on an international flight. There's a lot of gotchas. Did I already tell you my turkey story? I think I did, right? I feel like I've already told you my turkey story, how Turkish controllers don't like us very much in the United States Air Force. So they will come up with any reason to, no one here is from Turkey, right? Before I get into this, I don't want to step on any cultural toes, but Turkish air traffic control will come up with a reason to turn you away at the border if you've misread any instructions or diplomatic clearances or charts or anything like that. If you get off altitude by like 300 feet, they'll violate you. So I got to the border of Turkey on one particular deployment and they just put me into holding and did not tell me why. And I said, permission to proceed, negative. Okay. Chrome 2.1, request reason, negative. Okay, how long are we gonna hold? Stand by. Basically put me in the penalty vector. I found out later on it was because I went and got gas in Balad, Iraq. And I had not forgotten, I didn't even know about a document buried in several layers of bureaucracy that basically said you can't originate a United States Air Force flight out of wartime countries like Iraq. So I had to fly out of my holding pattern back to Iraq, get more gas, go back to Al Udeid in Qatar, stay the night in Qatar, and then the next morning leave Qatar and directly overfly Iraq. Then they let me in through the Turkish border. And this is all in an effort to go home from a deployment. So because I had landed in Iraq, I got turned around and it was just the most unbelievably obscure rule. So back to this slide, read all the notes, all the pertinent notes in the charts and the plates. When possible, consult with someone who's been to this particular place, like if you're going to Turkey or Iran or some place that is not super American friendly, it would help to have an instructor to consult with. Low altitude charts, if you're assigned to, say, go hold somewhere and you can't find the point on your FMS, go search the low chart. Sometimes they'll send you to a holding point on a low chart, even though you're in high airspace, which makes no sense, but that's European controller for you. Terminal charts. The star is all about flexibility, especially if you're in a slow airplane like a C-130. You got to be really flexible, ready to just take another point, familiar with the entire procedure. Basically, it's the best guess. When you say file the ROXO 10 on American Airlines, you're probably going to fly the whole star, but be ready for anything unusual. You can see half flight levels, which is strange, but they may tell you report passing flight level 6.5. What does that mean? They want you to report 6,500 feet. Strange. I know. It's like be on your toes. Drink your extra coffee that morning when you're flying international. USA, lowest flight levels, obviously flight level 180, and our transition altitudes also 18,000 feet, which helps hugely. But in the UK, I'm going to ask you on project 2, what exactly is your TA and where do you have to switch to, say when you're descending, where do you have to switch to local altimeter setting, and where do you have to switch to 2992? You'll have to go look at the Jeppesen approach chart, and you'll see that sometimes in the UK, especially London, it'll be controller assigned. They get to decide based on their mood, I suppose, or the day, or traffic. South America, lowest flight levels as high as flight level 240 sometimes. And then I threw this in, Kabul FIR is what designates all of Afghanistan flights. So the transition altitude is 14,000 feet MSL, while transition level is flight level 160, just to cause max confusion. Here's ATC assigned. This is what it looks like. If you see one, it says transition level by ATC, transition altitude 6,000. That means your lowest flight levels by ATC, they're going to tell you where to go to 992. But you're always going to switch to local altimeter setting at 6,000. Questions on any of that? Okay. So significant differences will actually be this transition level and altitude that I was just pointing out, and then units to designate altimeter setting. Those are the biggest things you're going to see. Approach charts, slightly different. We've already discussed a lot of this stuff, but here they say runway elevation is 3 hectopascals, which don't ask me how that is even possible, that makes sense, but transitions level is by ATC, etc. This is your London. This is actually pulled directly out of your project material. Example approaches. What was I going to point out about this? Yeah, it says, so your 2200 is mandatory, even though it doesn't have the top and bottom marks like usual. They put the glide slope directly on this one, which is interesting. And then the DME, they tell you it's designated off this NAVAID CGN. So the CGN VOR may not be the only NAVAID on this approach, but these distances are designated off of that. Missed approach again is charted here. It's pointing out once again, here is a little bit different. We're in Paris, France. Again, transition levels by ATC. They're going to tell you when to change to 2992. Transition altitude, 4,000. Here's your arrival procedure. In a Jeppesen arrival procedure, you're going to get a lot of these notes, black letters. And that's right here. This is your max airspeed in this holding pattern is 250 knots. So just pay attention to all the little notes. Cologne Bonn. I don't know why my little red circle migrated upwards, but I'm just showing you a variety of different stars. Paris, France. So many different notes. It's kind of overwhelming, but all I can say is be ready for absolutely anything, including the unexpected. So give it a good study. I would know, for example, if I was flying this approach, where Kenap is. Well, what if they clear me to hold at Kenap? I need to know that if I'm here and I need to break off, which direction to turn, things like that. Chair fly. And back to Russia one more time. You guys are seeing the right slides, right? I'm hoping you're actually seeing the slides. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yakutsk, Russia, up in the Arctic Circle, just to review, it's giving you a QNH setting and a QFE setting. And make sure with this controller that you're, oh, look at that, transition levels, flight level 50. Transition altitude is 3,610 feet. Now, what? That right there is the most unusual one I've ever seen. Very specific. And then this one makes me laugh, this NDB in Rio. The NDB Bravo has so many complications, and the NDB Yankee, because of the Jesus right here on the this 3,354 foot spot, is that gold Jesus standing on the big huge rock, in case anyone hasn't seen Rio de Janeiro. That's what this approach is based around, is to avoid hitting the Jesus. Please don't hit the Jesus. So Jesus is over here, and they have this whole route. So, oh my gosh, can you imagine flying this? I'm going to show you a cross section of what, this is a really old NDB. This is like 1990s, but it's still pretty cool. You have to switch from this VOR to this NDB, to this VOR, to this NDB to get on the runway. Would you want to do this in poor weather?
That sounds super awful.
This would be, oh my, I can see myself wanting to fly this. It was a perfect VFR day just to like make fun of it, just for awesome practice, but I can't imagine flying it in the weather. So very sporty, probably worse than flying into, say, Aspen. So, and this is all in mountainous terrain over the ocean. Those mountains in Rio go really high, real fast. So anyway, study the airport diagrams very, very well before the top of descent. I've gotten behind before, and you end up really behind the power curve if you haven't studied everything before the flight even. Clearance procedures may be different. Clearance delivery and departure instructors are sometimes very complex and given to you in a strange foreign accent. Be prepared for the unusual, including not being able to understand the controller very well. When in doubt, if you don't understand, say, the Portuguese accent that you would get here, what you can rely on is your rock solid knowledge of this approach before you go in. I mean, if you're nerdy enough to have Prepare 3D and you can fly it before you go into an approach like this, do it. Questions on anyone super motivated to go fly internationally now that I've scared you to death about it?
Yes.
Yes, scared to fly?
Yeah.
You know, this is probably why they make the big bucks in the international flying world. So, you know, it is what it is. Wish I could say I made the big bucks for doing it, but I'm going to stop the recording unless anyone has a pertinent question that has to do with the lectures. No? Okay, stop the recording.